Preparedness is one thing, um, physical goods, things of that nature. But what's really needed is consciousness. Human beings have a natural tendency to control. Women and men have not a great track record here on the earth when it comes to keeping control freaks in line, you know, preventing them from completely taking over. And so I've said for many, many years that as things collapse, you're going to see the rise of cult leaders. And it can happen to the best of us to try to influence things around us. And, just to be totally transparent, I do believe there is a time where men have to take control, so to speak, and defend the tribe, take control, so to speak, and defend. Like in a situation where you're in a house and you have a sword or using something to defend, you have to be in a non-passive state of consciousness. So using that metaphor, sometimes people need to be very forward with their opinions and have a lot of confidence in themselves, especially if the world is trying to work against them and take down their sacred masculine and feminine. We should be way further aligned in America as far as people having off-grid environments in which they're using modern technologies. We do have the reality of people living and eating and growing food, but because the system hasn't collapsed yet, and because people are still able to line up at their local coffee shop and use the modern technology and apps, like they're not actually forced to, it's happening as I speak, they're not actually forced to be grounded. And so as long as there are these mind control incentives, QR codes, things of that nature, special deals, order with your QR code, it's all a mind control operation to take us away from nature and a natural circadian rhythm. The natural circadian rhythm is not looking at the blue light, the false technology, although I don't have my blue light glasses on now. But it's like when you combine that with the 5G, with the smart meters, which is being rolled out, in some cases, certain neighborhoods all at once, that changes the human field. So just going off grid by itself, folks, I have experience with this. In the modern day and age on Facebook, you'll have off-gridders that are linked in on Facebook talking about off-grid things like they're off-grid, but they're not off-grid here. And they're not off-grid here, right? Not when they're here on Facebook. So they can be in the middle of nowhere in the mountains of Colorado or the mountains of this, the mountains of that, and their consciousness will be a duplicate recreation of, say, Portland, Seattle, Los Angeles, especially when you have the massive flight out of California into certain areas. You could take the person out of Babylon, but you can't necessarily take Babylon out of the person. So just a simple geographic relocation, which a lot of people are doing right now, and they're realizing that their environments are crap. If you really want to be fully off-grid and independent, you have to unplug your mind from the pre-programming. Tribalism is one thing, and things that lead to white supremacy and people wanting the ethno-state and then being in denial of it. I get it, and the weaponized migration. But ultimately, in the old days, in the 70s and 80s, you actually had to get to know somebody and look them in the eye and have a beer with them before you were brainwashed by your cell phone as to people from other places. So there's an anti-black sentiment, anti-white sentiment, anti-this. But basically, zombies are everywhere that don't want to hear this, and that's the problem. Everywhere you look now, people want to tune out from the truth that Satan has taken over our planet. And it isn't until the solar flares take out the grid, take out the microchips, that we're actually forced to look at each other, not computers. And so a day is coming, and it's not going to be an easy transition when it happens. It's going to be very traumatic for those of us that are in urban environments that are surrounded by concrete. People that are in the concrete jungles should be using their technology to communicate with people around them for the betterment of everything, and they shouldn't be offended by the true teachings of Christ. When people say they support Jesus verbally, and then the actual teachings of Christ are brought up, and it's addressed that we're a society that is killing without remorse, it really comes clear to us that we're not dealing with truly spiritual people. So my advice is to find spiritual communities where you have a like mind, where you have not like minds over conspiracy theories, liking Trump, not liking Trump, Antifa, this, but over wanting to help society, wanting to help heal society, things of that nature. Growing food, people that are having relationships, and not territorial over who's looking at somebody's wife. People need to be able to be real humans, kind of like characters out of Lord of the Rings, where we have, people should look to our traditional old European ways before we were taken over by technology. And so there's a lot of people out there that have superiority complexes, yet it's more so them and the machine, cyborgs, archons, and these very cell phones now seem to be influencing people's spirituality or lack thereof. The cell phone connection. So it isn't until it goes away and we're away from it for months at a time, and our heartbeat, and the blood pressure goes back to normal. And then when we're no longer eating the fast food and drinking the coffee with the GMO, which many people are, drinking certain coffee out there from certain corporations that's probably poisoning them. Certain unnamed corporations that are serving probably the most inferior form of coffee you can possibly imagine buying would be certain companies with logos with their legs spread out, certain logos of certain corporations basically representing the Earth woman getting screwed by the invading Archon demons, basically. We don't have perfect lighting, but we are living in a gray reality perfect for gray aliens, less so for humans. So we're basically being terraformed. And in 100 years, there'll be a different reality with a different racial group on the planet as opposed to what exists now. And they're putting out a fake narrative right now. This group's preferred, that group's preferred, this group's going to be eradicated. And while there is weaponized migration, checking up on our upload here, and there is this and that, it is all a ruse. It is all a problem, reaction, solution. So white man, brown man, Arab, Afghan, they want your soul, as the song says. Okay? So I'm going to place this video out there in a few places. So some final thoughts. I want to keep this short. A successful off-grid community would have people with different talents. So you'd have people that obviously can fight, can defend, are willing to do security, are willing to do watch, people that do CB radio, communications, people that are conflict mediators, things of that nature, people that can cook food, people that can build, people that can troubleshoot, people that are good communicators. We don't all have all these different skills, but if you have like an off-grid community that's not like a cult where they're all following a leader, but I think that mindful leadership where you have decision makers, male and female, but in some cases, in the modern day and age, but this will change when more women wake up, women at times in some circumstances that have lived in the modern urban environment can be barriers to actually getting prepared in time. Filling that water gallon, there should be no hesitation if somebody says, we need to get prepared and we need to fill this water gallon. This drum full of water, 55 gallons, fill it up. Now that we see articles about Russia hacking aspects of the grid and causing floods, it's not crazy to fill up water containers. To know about Azure Standard and where Azure Standard drives and does it drop right down there, and other places where you can buy bulk food for cheap. There's nothing abnormal about that. And so there should be, even in urban environments, micro cells of truthers with prepping clubs, now that prepping is going mainstream, but you need to merge the spiritual preparedness. There are some people doing the spiritual preparedness, but not doing the physical preparedness. You have people doing the physical preparedness, but they're not doing the spiritual preparedness. So I think that is all that will be said. Now, we'll be back with more on this. This is what you can consider to be an icebreaker conversation to get the ball rolling.